Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness, using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching. This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, where we explore how to forge mental toughness and resilience in every aspect of life. Welcome, I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann. I'm an ICF certified professional coach with a background as a teacher, basketball coach, and athletic director. But my journey took a dramatic turn in 2020 when I survived both cancer and a stroke. Those experiences shaped my mission, help others grow stronger in every facet of life. Today, I work with athletes, coaches, educators, and anyone who believes that positive mental health is both achievable and a personal responsibility. This podcast is dedicated to helping listeners develop a positive version of toughness, one rooted in resilience, focus, and growth. Whether you're looking to excel on the field, in the classroom, or in life, this is your space to learn, grow, and take action. Join me on this journey, and together, let's forge your mettle. Welcome back, Metalheads. It's the Mental Mettle Podcast with your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and I have it's a very special episode. I think that this is, if I had to try to explain and what I'm trying to do on this podcast and what I'm trying to do for sports, I think that this podcast is going to be one of the most influential and best examples of what I'm trying to do, probably the most that I've ever recorded. And my guest today is Ryan Davis. Now, Ryan is straight off of just a hugely successful season as the Roanoke Benson girls basketball team, and he's had a lot of success in the Central Illinois area with girls basketball and at a couple different levels. And this is no exception this year. He just goes in places and he does such a great job. And this, if you know this show a lot, if you pay attention to it, you know that this conversation is not going to be about wins and losses. It's about anxiety, expectations, struggles, and a theme that I talk about a lot on here is vulnerability and the need to want to be vulnerable and how helpful it is, not just for a player, but for a coach. So one of the things that first stood out for me as Ryan was he contacted me, and again, I've crossed paths with Ryan a little bit, and he reached out to me and he said, I want you to come and work with my girls with some of your team mental coaching that you do. And one of the first things he said was, I want you to work with them because I myself struggle with anxiety, and I know how it can affect a basketball player, and I want to give them every tool they can to help them fight that anxiety, because I know it can make such a huge difference in their performance and their mental health in all those things. And for the first time, we chatted in the past, but not a lot. We didn't know each other well. And for him to just immediately open up on that he said, I know how important it is because I myself struggle with it. And I thought, well, this is the kind of guy I want to work with. And I know that. And he was a kid, and you're going to hear this story in this in this episode. He was a kid that loved basketball, wanted to succeed, wanted to do well, but when the lights came on, and we say when the lights came on, but he didn't take much of a spotlight, just any kind of expectation, and the anxiety just took over. And it really, there's a lot of reasons for it, and I'm not sure he figured them out all. A lot of it was expectations, and some of the expectations, not necessarily that coaches and parents were putting on him, but expectations that were somewhat probably perceived that he put on himself. And he grew up hearing stories about his dad and living in a community that really thought a lot about basketball, and that put expectation on it. He loved the basketball, but that's where the expectation came from. So that's where the anxiety came from. And nobody was really telling him what he had to be or who he had to be, but in his mind, those expectations were real, and they were causing some of that anxiety. And that's a real thing that a lot of today's athletes can feel and can notice. Like, as a parent, as a coach, we may think that I'm not really putting much expectations on them, but it's just the world's different with social media and a lot of those things. It just can come from so many things, and then once it starts, and once it's like a seed that plants, it affects the voice, and it affects that mental health, and starts to come from places that the stories that we tell ourselves, telling ourselves we're not good enough, tell us that we're letting people down, and it's part of our identity. And when our performance is down, our identity is shaken. All these things, and any of those things start to happen, and they get worse and worse, then anxiety is not far behind. And when anxiety happens, Ryan's going to talk about this. Anxiety, we say, is a mental thing, but it definitely goes straight into the physical. Some of that embodiment, that mind-body connection, and how the mind affects the body and the body affects the mind. And it's so important. And all that to be said, Ryan is now a successful basketball coach. And I believe not despite his struggles with anxiety, but because of his struggles with anxiety, because it gives him the empathy and ability to connect with his players in a way that a lot of coaches don't. And that is why this episode is so useful, because it is such a great, just an example of what I'm trying to do with Mental Mettle, is understanding that this anxiety and these mental struggles are real, but there's things we can do about it. We don't want to ignore them. We want to be vulnerable. We want to say, hey, this is a struggle. This is something that I struggle with, that my players struggle with. How do we get better at it? How do we attack this? How do we say, this is something I struggle with, and how do we attack this? How do we get better at this? Rather than just shaming ourselves for not being better at it. And that's what this is all about. So let's jump into the interview. It's fantastic. I'll talk to you on the other side about a couple things with this, but for now, pay attention to Coach Ryan Davis. Welcome to Mental Mettle Coaching, where our mission is to help you learn to thrive in the face of adversity, not just survive it. We are passionate about empowering you to live, play, and work with a resilient and spirited mindset. Hi, I'm Matt Thomann. I'm an ICF professional coach and keynote speaker. My background as an athlete, basketball coach, teacher, and school administrator has equipped me with the insights that resonate deeply with the schools, teams, athletes, and coaches I work with. However, it's my personal journey through anxiety, cancer, and an ischemic stroke in 2020 that truly brings authenticity to my presentations. While learning to speak and write again, I also pursued and earned my ICF coaching certification. Now the practices I embrace are more than theoretical concepts. They're a way of life. Developing a positive mindset is within reach for all, but it requires self-awareness and the repetition of intentional activities. At Mental Mettle Coaching, we'll guide you, your staff, and your students on this transformative journey. Together, let's forge your mettle. All right, here we go. It's the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, here with my guest today, Ryan Davis. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Dude, I'm excited. You and I chatted a little bit, and we're going to get into some stuff here today, but I think one of the themes here we're going to talk to her, and I know you and I have talked, so I know you listen to the show a little bit, but if I do nothing else on this show, Um, I'm not afraid to be vulnerable and talk about things that you wouldn't always talk about in a sports themed podcast. And it's the exact opposite of a lot of what, well, like any sports themed show is not going to be anything. It's not going to lean into like vulnerability and sharing some of your thoughts and some of your struggles. And I think that's what I like about it. And I think that is how you grow. And I know our preliminary conversation lets me know that that's one of the things we're going to lean into. And I'm really excited about that, Coach.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it and kind of share my story. So
No, it's great. And I think that it's cathartic on some level for people to do that. And then when you don't do that, I think you can, I don't know, it bottles up and it doesn't do us any good, which is especially for guys that are trying to lead basketball players. It I don't know, society doesn't necessarily want us to do that, but I think the coaches I know that do that are open with it just have so much more luck with their kids.
absolutely, I think that that showing that side of vulnerability, that's they see that you're human just like them, and you have your struggles just like them, and I think that's all a huge part of building that relationship. And as I mean, that it's honestly not about the X's and O's anymore. It's about the relationships um, in team sports.
I think there's occasionally a coach in basketball that might come up with a new offensive or defensive scheme, maybe, but most of that's just a tweak on something else or whatever. I think that is the new. I think that finding the mental edge and getting your players to pull it off and do it for you is, I think that's so much more important. Good coaches know that, but I think that leaning into that vulnerability and letting them know that you're human and doing that is how you get them to pull that stuff off. It's the X's and O's. I don't want to say they don't matter because they do matter, but what X's and O's you're teaching don't necessarily matter, if that makes
Correct.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do me a favor. Let's run through your coaching background and where you at, where you've been, where you're at now.
Oh man, this might take the entire podcast.
I think you can give me the short version, but yeah, I know you've been around. I've seen you a lot of different places. So
Yep. So I started off right out of college at DMAC, where you also coached.
yep.
Um, I I coached with Tony Riddle on the girls' side, and I coached with Mitch Holmgren on the boys' side. I was his freshman coach and varsity assistant. Then I
What
went
I
to
mean,
Wash.
you out of the gate, you had two good mentors there.
Yes,
Like I don't classy coaches that also make them work and kids work and just are good people.
they did it the right way. I
Yeah,
mean, I learned so much from those two. You see some of the examples being set by other coaches that aren't so good, and that kind of spills over to their players. But yeah, with the coaches that I've been able to work with, I've learned so much from them, and um, you know they've definitely helped make me the coach that I am today.
yeah. So so you're at DMAC and that you're with those two guys, and then from there, where'd you go?
I went to Washington Central Junior High, where I coached for 4 years, and then I got a job over in Germantown Hills. And at that time, they did not have any girls basketball coaching opportunities, so I coached 2 years at Eureka High School until something opened up at Germantown Hills, and then I was there for 10 years. Um, you know, Loved it. Built the program. Had a lot of success there. I also wanted to continue to grow myself, so I was doing for five years. I was doing both Germantown Hills, seventh and eighth grade, and then I was also go into Metamora High School, where I did a couple years as the sophomore coach, and then varsity assistant, and then I went strictly varsity assistant for a couple years. Learned under some good coaches there, and then uh, I went back and did one more year of Germantown Hills, and when Roanoke came open, I decided to throw my name into the hat, and you know, got an interview, which I was super excited for, and went in and just talked to them, and they ended up offering me the job. And 3 years later, here we are.
Yeah. And so most of that has been girls basketball, correct?
Yes. Besides coaching the 1 year with Mitch at the high school, Washington Central was boys, and I did some sixth grade basketball at Germantown Hills, but I love girls basketball. I'll never go back to boys.
Talk to me about that decision where, like, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know a lot of coaches that do that, but I'm just always curious where you found that distinction and what you enjoyed about it.
Yeah, I felt like boys, they're phenomenal athletes and good players, but I feel like some of them play the game for the wrong reasons. Being a team sport, they're not playing as a team; they're out to get their individual stats. Where girls, you know, are very raw for the majority of them, and they listen better, in my opinion, and they try to do what you ask instead of like, nah, I'm going to do things my way, which I ran into with boys. But they understand the team game. They haven't really um, been molded into, because they don't watch the NBA.
No.
They don't go out and play 1-on-1, 2-on-2. Like, these girls are coming in and you just don't see it. They come in and they're ready to be molded into what you want. And I've just found that the relationships that I've been able to build with these girls, um, by the end, they're ready to run through a wall if I ask them to.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I do the individual coaching, I do a lot of the individual coaching, and when I work, one of the first questions I always ask, just to get to know an athlete, is I'll ask who's your favorite athlete and why, right? And the guys will always have an answer, and I had to start changing the question for the girls because
Yeah,
most of them were like, I don't even know. I don't even watch any sports. And I realized, okay, I got to change the question a little bit to get what I was looking out of it. And you're right. Most of them don't pay any attention to it. They just, and that's not good or bad necessarily, but it does make it different. They have a different agenda when they come into play.
for sure. Going back to boys just out playing pickup games, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. You don't see girls doing that, and because of that, when you teach an offense or whatever, I mean their movements are very robotic, because they take it literally. Like, I need you
Mm-hmm.
to go to the high
Oh,
post, and they're going to follow lines like up to the high post, and they're going to sit right there, not in the open area around the high post. They're going right to the elbow,
mm-hmm.
because that's what when I say high post, it's that area, but they're going to go stand right on that elbow, and it's working with them to understand the concepts a little bit more, but um
One of my favorite quotes on that, and Tad Myers is a good
yep.
friend. So whenever I took over and started working with some girls basketball, and he said, "Let me give you a piece of advice." And he said, "The good news about coaching girls basketball is they will do whatever you tell you whatever you tell them to do." And he said, "The bad thing about girls basketball," he goes, "they will do whatever you tell them
Yep.
to." And he's like, "So if they do something and you don't like it," he goes, "it's probably on you because you didn't explain it right,
Yep.
and you like." So it was an interesting, as you say that's the words that came through my head because
Yep.
that's 100% right.
Yeah, he
Not
nailed
all
it
of them,
there.
of course, but yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So, and then this year at Roanoke Benson, you guys had a really good year, and that's what I follow you a little bit, and I saw a pod that you got, or a post, and you got some coaching honors from this year, and I thought, man, I know I know, Ryan, and let's come on the show. So tell us about the year you've had, or
Yeah,
since you've been there at Roanoke Benson.
yeah. Since I took the job at Roanoke Benson, um, I came into the position and they had just gone 8-23 the year before, and you know I'm not taking the credit all. I'm gonna give it to my girls, but in that first season we were able to go 28-6. Um, the There had never been a 20-win team in Roanoke Benson history for girls basketball, and not only did we get 20, we got 28. We got to the sectional championship, um, which we fell just a little bit short on, and then to turn around this year and go win 23 games. So again, we uh, broke that 20 win mark. We won our second regional, and then lost eventually to DMAC, who went on to win the state championship in the sectional. So um, yeah, it's been a crazy turnaround, with that. But I give all the credit to my girls and the buy-in.
Yeah, and that's how and like I said, I think we've crossed paths several times. But then when you reached out to me to come in and work with your girls, and you were really upfront about it, about one of the reasons you want me to work with the girls is because you understood how sometimes players struggle with some anxiety, and
Yes,
this sort of mental coaching you felt like would be very useful for them, which obviously I agree. That's all I do.
yes.
That's all I do. So I'm with you. So I knew that we agreed on that, on that front. But I want to get into a little bit a conversation you and I had the other day, and as we were talking about it, I said I don't want to hear it. I want to hear it on the podcast so that we can talk about it. But one of the reasons that you were so adamant about me working with the girls and knowing that some players struggle with anxiety is because something that you struggled with. And I'd love to hear as much as you want to talk about that, and we can dive into it a little bit, because I think there's a lot. Again, there's a lot to be said for the vulnerability and just for your own benefit, but then the benefit of others, and letting them know, no, this is not. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're not worth playing basketball, but there's things you can do about it. And I think that's the important part.
Yeah, I've found that through coaching and even teaching in my health classroom, I've found that I l- I don't mind sharing my story with kids, because I if I can help one kid, or
Mm-hmm.
have one kid come to me and say, like, you know I suffer from this, and they can relate with me and I can relate with them, I feel like I've done my job. But my story started my freshman year of high school. I had played before then. I had played on all the traveling teams and stuff in the area, on all sports. And my freshman year for basketball, no problems in practice. I'll never forget the first time I stepped on the court as a freshman. And freshman games, the only people in the stands are your parents.
Yeah, and where were
No,
what school you're at?
this was at Eureka High School,
Okay. I mean, yeah,
and
there can't be that many people there. It's on a Saturday
yeah,
morning, probably, right?
yep, yep.
Yep.
So I step onto the floor and I get that first pass, and that ball felt like a feather. I could not understand what was going on. I've never had this problem before. I go to dribble and it totally feels awkward. Pass, it felt so light. I remember taking that first shot, and when I let go of it, I didn't know if it was going to be 4 foot short or 4 foot long,
Yeah, that's not
because
good.
yeah, and yeah. So trying to figure out, what was wrong, before the next game, I'm like, maybe it was just a fluke. Maybe I was sick. Same thing on the second game.
Mm.
Before the third game, I went down on the treadmill and tried to run and like wear myself down so my heart wasn't beating out of my chest during that time, and that didn't help. But again, at that time, you're talking the late '90s, um, that it wasn't talked about. So I had no idea what was going on. And it wasn't until I was a sophomore in college that I went and questioned like what it could be. Went to my doctor, and they diagnosed me with severe anxiety and severe depression. And you know, after I played again my sophomore year,
In high
again,
school?
what's that?
In high school?
Yes, in high school.
Yeah.
Um, and again, same thing. I and you've coached basketball. If you can't pass, shoot, you're not going to play. So
Yeah.
it was extremely tough for me. But I made the decision to after my sophomore year, I want to sit back. I want to watch. I want to observe. I still love playing, but it just it pretty much ended my sports career because I couldn't find a way to get around it because again it wasn't talked about and I didn't know what was wrong with me at the time. So it was with that. Um, Fast forward to my sophomore year of college and I get diagnosed with it. Um,
Was
then I
so,
could start to
so
get some
just
help.
that so was something else prompting it? Or I mean, you must have like the anxiety must have been like creeping in other ways now that you weren't playing sports anymore. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't really remember um, a lot of other things that really triggered it. Um, I did other things in high school that I was in front of people, and I don't remember having this anxiety to go on
Hmm.
and perform or whatever it was. Uh, but yeah, sports, it it just as soon as I stepped on the court, it was like my heart was beating out of my chest.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting though. Whenever I talk about this, anxiety stuff and working with kids that struggle a little bit here, it's like it's it's not just an athletics thing though, right? It might
Right.
start there, but if you and I'm not saying you did anything wrong, but if you just remove yourself from the situation, it's probably going to be a short-term fix because
Hmm.
it's how you respond to the things that you care about,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So if you're like I'm going to take away basketball, you will continually find other things that you like and you care about, and the anxiety will just because that's how you respond to pressure. And
Yeah.
you're not going to live a life with no pressure or no adversity because I don't know, that's not really life because that's going
Yeah.
to happen. So when you have that inclination to get anxious and to respond to pressure in that unhelpful way, it's going to show up somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy how anxiety works.
Yeah.
I when I share my story with my students, um, I'll start with like even like today, I have a routine in the morning, and
Yeah.
if my routine is off, like it throws my whole day out of whack. And I kind of just paint this picture for them. Like I'll get to school, I'm always one of the first ones there, and we have these parking spaces, and they're not assigned, but everybody knows this is where I park. And if somebody's in my spot,
Oh,
man, my day is ruined.
yeah.
And I can't explain it. I'm like, this sounds so dumb, but it's just that's the way my brain is wired. Like it's throwing off my routine.
It's hard. I mean, I had a lot of I didn't I mean, I struggled with anxiety in different ways, and some of that came from some serious health issues, when I had my stroke and stuff, but I will still it's like some of the adversity that I faced and that was negative, little things like it's so weird, like even getting a cold or a stuffy nose or things like that, and I'll it'll like start to trigger like, oh, I can't breathe, and then is
Yeah,
something else wrong with me? Because whenever I've had something like I did have something serious wrong with me, your
yeah,
brain it does. That's the thing about anxiety; it doesn't have to make sense,
yeah,
and I think that's what people don't understand, that it's like it doesn't have to make sense, and logic is not a big part of it.
yeah. I mean, it can be anything. I mean, you're definitely going to have some stressors, some regular stressors,
Yeah.
but I mean, anything could set you off. Um, you know, it can be silly stuff that you wouldn't think of, but it just does. It's the way your brain is wired, and it's how your brain reacts to the situation.
Yeah. So what's the so you recognize that about yourself now, that it's easy to get thrown off and do that.
Absolutely.
But what I'm curious, what do you do now to like combat that?
Well, I'm on, daily meds
Yeah.
to help with that. And then just trying to stay active, making sure you get good sleep just so I can, make sure that I'm trying to stay healthy. A lot of those things in the long run just kind of help you out.
Yeah. I think that the sleep is a much bigger one than people realize.
Yes, for sure.
I noticed that some of the things that I struggle with, if I'm man, I am a stickler now for getting my sleep, and
Yep.
it's a big deal for me to get that sleep. And I used to be somebody that, like, it was more important for me to be the guy that was up at 5 a.m. getting my workouts in. And now it's like, man, if I'm tired, I'm like, no, I'm sleeping in a little bit. I'm getting a little bit more. I'm getting a little sleep because that's going to help me, like,
Yep.
in just in so many ways that, just making sure I'm getting up at 5 to say that I did it is not as
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So, so what's the, I'm curious about your decision then to be like, it's interesting because you didn't play. Was it all sports or just basketball that you quit after
It
sophomore year?
was it was just basketball. I went out and I didn't want to stop playing sports, so I
Sure.
tried golf. I played golf. Was not very good at golf, but I enjoyed it. Um, so I did that. Um, looking back, it's one of those things I wish I would have played football, but my dad was like a Eureka high school legend, and to hear everybody talk about him and
In
the
basketball
comparisons, well, he did everything. He
and everything.
wrestled, basketball, football. Like he was one of the greatest athletes to ever walk the halls. He had offers to play Division I football back in the '70s. I remember him saying Georgia Tech and some other schools really wanted him. He was the all-time leader in rushing for the longest time, and he only played till halftime of the games because they were up so big. Like they never lost. But that was before they had like state and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So when you have teachers bringing that up, it kind of just veered me away. Even though I played football like JFL, I never played in high school because I don't know. There was again the anxiety. I didn't want to be compared to my dad, and I didn't
So
want
that's
to.
that's that's going to be my question there, Ryan, is the connection, in your words, what do you see as the connection between expectations and anxiety? Because that's
Yeah,
all I hear whenever you're telling this story.
yeah. So I mean, that was a big stressor for me. Trying to live up to his level. It wasn't him that was putting the pressure on me. It was myself putting the pressure on myself. So you know when you hear these things on a regular basis, it's just like you want to have success, and at that time it wasn't about you know just playing for the enjoyment of the game. I didn't want to be seen as like um a failure because I didn't live up to my dad and what he did, even though again there was no pressure coming from him. It was just pressure that I put on myself.
Yeah, but I think that there's a lesson there for parents that you might, I mean, and it might not have been your dad, but if they, I think that they need to be aware of it, because it doesn't necessarily have to be extra pressure that you're putting on your kid, but but that's the lesson, is that it can exist just because it exists,
Yeah,
because the way a kid looks up to a parent and what they see or what others say, because it may not have been your dad doing it, but I guarantee you had coaches, teachers, teammates be like, oh, your dad, like, you're going to be
Yeah.
awesome, right? Like your dad didn't have to do it, but it existed, right?
Sure.
And that's why I think it's so important. It's so important for the kids or for the parents to know that that's real. And if you're putting the extra pressure on purpose, then I mean, I don't know. It's funny because without expectations, we don't necessarily achieve goals.
Yeah.
But undue expectations can go south in a hurry. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest tight ropes I think parents have to walk is what is the expectation that I should put on my kid? What shouldn't I? And how much is too much? And and every kid's different.
For sure.
Your athlete probably spends hours working on the specific skill set they need for their sport. And they probably spend hours in the weight room building their body. But how much time do they spend intentionally training their mind? Well, building mindset is the key to bridging the gap between the skills that we see and game execution. Well, Mental Mettle Coaching provides individual programs that can help your athlete develop this third and crucial skill set. If you are a parent of an athlete, I want you to hear this. You are already your kid's most powerful mental performance coach. It's not me. It's not their strength coach. It's not their varsity coach. It's you. The way you talk in the minivan, at the dinner table, and after games is literally wiring your athlete's brain for either confidence or anxiety. That is a lot of pressure, and it's kind of daunting. And that's why I created my free email course called the Resilient Parents Playbook. In it, I walk you through the 5 most common mistakes we make as sports parents, and I give you simple, practical tools to fix them. You'll learn how to praise effort and attitude instead of just results, how to handle the car ride home, and how to help your kid manage nerves and pressure in a healthy way. It's completely free. Just hit the link in the show notes and grab the Resilient Parents Playbook and start becoming the kind of mental coach your athlete actually needs at home.
We started with the mantra after listening to a podcast, and it was play fearless.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the outside pressure, because we had so much success in year one. There was the expectation of just repeating in year two, and we put that pressure on ourselves, and we were struggling with it. And so we came up with play fearless, and that meant how, like, the way that I coached, kind of like what you were just saying, I didn't want to put that added pressure on them.
Right.
So I'm not, if we're watching film, I'm not pointing out negative things. I'm pointing out positive things. They don't need me to, tell them something, uh, you know, like in the middle of a game, I can wait and at practice or something, because nothing's going to change during a game. You're just going to get them more anxious, and they're gonna stress more, and now all of a sudden your team is playing to not make a mistake. And if you're playing not to make a mistake, and you're playing not to get subbed out, you're not playing the game. So that's what we were all kind of trying to do. Myself and my assistant coach, was just coach them in a way where we are not putting any extra pressure on them. Just the way we teach and coach and communicate. We wanted to get rid of all that extra pressure, so they could just go out and play.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I see parents do a lot of times, and coaches do, is they try to make what I would call in-game mechanical adjustments. Like, think about a player's shot, and be like, hey, like, if you're telling your kid or when they're playing baseball or softball and saying, hey, you're doing this with your elbow, or you're doing that, this is not going well. It's not going to happen in a game, because those are things that take time to develop.
Yep.
So and that's the problem is as a coach, just because we see it and we know that that's part of the problem doesn't necessarily mean that we can fix it in that game as much as we'd
Right.
want to. It just doesn't happen. Now, again, sometimes it's the athlete. Some athletes you would have to know that they can handle that,
Yeah.
but a lot can't, and that's what makes it so tough. So as you what's really interesting to me is you decided not to play softball, or I'm sorry, basketball after your sophomore year, and then, but yet you decide to go on and coach basketball. And
Yeah.
I'm curious about that decision because there must be a lot of love for it there.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite sport. Even though I made that decision, I still had a group of friends, and we would get together, and we would play pickup games, 2 or 3 times a week. And I still got my basketball fix, but to me, I didn't have that pressure on me. We were just
Right.
out there playing, a game. So I enjoyed that much more. At the time, Tim Meese was coaching at Eureka High School. And at the time, I didn't really appreciate what he did. But now, looking back as a coach, I appreciate what he did by telling me, you know, knowing that when I stepped on the court, I wasn't able to do the things that I did in practice. So he pretty much was up front and said, like, look, this is where I see you in our rotation. You're probably not going to get in unless we're up big or down big.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that hurt, like, as at that time as a kid. But looking back, I mean, he was being very transparent,
Yeah.
and um, now I appreciate that because he was letting me know I didn't need to, stress over, what did I do something wrong, or that. Like, he was very upfront with me, and told me, what it would look like if I played. And so with that, I just decided to kind of sit back and watch the games and enjoy. And again, it was kind of removing that stressor from my life, where I could sit back and I could still get that basketball fix by playing in all those pickup games weekly, and watching my classmates and my former teammates play on game days.
So as a coach now and somebody who really understood or still understands that struggle of pressure and expectations and anxiety, tell me about how it affects your coaching, and how do you think that that's like this makes me a better coach because of
Yeah.
this.
Um, I would say, to start, it's given me greater empathy. Um, you know, Knowing the struggles and stuff that I've gone through, um, instead of just looking at a player and assuming, which a lot of coaches, like, you're just lazy, or you're not
Yeah.
giving, full effort. I recognize, like, they're stressed out, or there's something not right. And so I'm able to relate, and then I can have those conversations with them. It's made me a much better communicator. I make myself, like, approachable to everyone at any time. I'm going around during practices, and have every day I have conversations with all my players, whether it's 30 seconds or a couple minutes, while we're doing different drills. I want to go around, and kind of talk to them, and, see how they're doing, see how their day's been going. If there's anything that they want to tell me, I just, and that certain players have to be coached a certain way.
Hmm.
And going back to that play fearless, um, I'm not a yeller. I'm gonna sit there, and I'll have conversations with you, like, during the game, because again, yeah, I don't want to put that pressure on them. So I think that has made me a better communicator. Um, I'm big into being open and honest. You know, I want to have those conversations with my players. And the thing I love is I've had players come up, and because they feel comfortable talking to me, they'll come up and they'll share stuff with me, like, I'm really struggling in school, coach. We've got all these finals coming up, or this big exam. um, so if they struggled in practice, or whatever it is, like, they feel comfortable enough coming and talking to me about it. And I love that, because again, that's part of building a relationship, that you know it it it, it makes me a better listener.
Yeah. I think that it's an easy cop out sometimes if for a coach, if they say, "When, man, the kids are just being lazy today," or "So and so is being lazy today." Now, some kids are just, I mean, don't want to work very hard,
Sure.
but you know that, like, it's not a one day thing. They're like that a lot, right?
Yeah.
But if you see a change in a kid, and you just assume, oh, they don't want to work very hard, or they're just not listening to me, and that is not normal. It's not them just being lazy. There's
Yeah.
something else is going on. Oh, there just is. And we don't give enough kids enough credit sometimes. Kids that play a sport in high school for 4 years and show up every day and do this, and we just, and I mean, it's kind of audacious of a coach to say, well, they're just lazy. Well, really? Because they don't need to be here,
Yeah.
and they're doing it
especially
right.
especially nowadays with social
Right.
media and stuff. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
even have to deal with that, and I still was super anxious back in the
Yeah.
late 90s. But now, to play, and everything's getting posted and shared, like.
It it makes it so much worse, which is why I think that the sort of the stuff that we're talking about, and the tools that, like, when you had me come in with and giving your girls some tools to do this, I am such I am so big on, yes, we start to recognize that this anxiety and these pressures are somewhat of a problem, as you just said, because social media and there's just so much more pressure than it used to be. And it's lazy of a coach to just say, oh, well, they're just not tough and they need to suck it up. Or maybe you could give them some tools, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is missing, that needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of that, is your culture and your environment that you're trying to build. Um, you know, I make it a point that my athletes feel seen and heard. And again, it's that's my why. That's why I coach, is to build those, not just relationships for the season, but those lifelong relationships. But you had mentioned when you came in, um, I took a lot from your talk, because I had never really thought of it. And again, it's just one of those simple concepts that, duh, like, why didn't I do this earlier? But you had talked about how, practicing, uh, mental health techniques and stuff in practice, and taking time, and how, as a coach, most coaches are like, I don't want to take my time in practice and waste
Mm-hmm.
my time in practice when we could be doing this. I had never thought of that, but you know, it hit me when you said that, because all these things you want to do. You want to be a good scorer. You want to be able to, penetrate. You want to be a good passer. Whatever it is, you can't do that if your head's not right.
None of it.
And so, once we had that, and I had heard that from you, and it resonated well with me, I started doing weekly, like, check-ins, and we would do stuff daily, um, you know, to kind of combat that, and work on that. But then I would also have, on Wednesdays, I sent out like a midweek check-in,
Mm-hmm.
where I was asking about, where they're at, mentally, and like some of the things that you had discussed. How are we feeling about this? How are we feeling about that? And then I'd always end up, the last couple questions, like, is there anything I can help you with? How can I help you get past this? How can I help you to be more successful, or whatever it is? But again, that's just me trying to make them more comfortable, and showing them that I'm here to listen. And again, I think that's just part of how to build a successful culture.
It's the intentionality that,
Yeah.
that matters. Because I don't know what exactly I said there, but it's one of my jokes a lot of times. Like I'll ask a coach, like, what do you do to make sure you're a good defensive team? Well, we do shell drill for 20 minutes every day. We do this for, we do, okay. What do you do to make sure your team is mentally tough every day? Well, we do a culture team building thing the first day of practice, and we had a speaker once. And I'm like,
Yep.
what do you do? What do you do daily? Well, they know. I'm like, you would never do that with defense. You would be
Yeah.
like, and just because they're bad at it at first, you don't care. You're like, okay, we're doing shell drill again.
Yep.
What are we doing today? We're doing shell drill again. So if you think it's important, it has to be part of your practice plan. It has to be something that
Absolutely.
you do every day. Otherwise, you're not going to be nearly as good at it as you could be. And
Yeah.
that's the message I'm trying to say is like, make it part of your practice plan, man. Do
Yep.
something with it. And you will get the benefit of it, because it's funny that you said something about what my why is and making those connections and just helping kids out and do all those things. And you'll know some people, some coaches that would say, well, yeah, but my number one is we got to win games. Well, if your only focus is winning games, you're missing some kids and you're not helping kids like you could.
Yep.
And you may or may not win games.
Yeah.
If your focus is to go in and help kids, you're going to help kids and make them better people, and you may or may not win games, right? But you probably will win more games than you think. And
It's a byproduct.
It's a byproduct.
Yeah.
It is. And that is the one thing I can't say enough and loud enough to parents, players, and coaches, is winning is a byproduct, because
Yep.
there's so many things that you can't control and you can't do anything about. So have it be a beautiful byproduct. It's a byproduct we really want, we really love.
Yeah.
But it's a byproduct.
For sure.
So, Coach, this has been a fantastic conversation. I love what you're doing. I love how you're doing it, and I love that you called me. It was great working with your girls. So, last question. Always ask, what did I not ask you that I should have? What did I miss? What's the question I didn't ask that I should have?
Man, that's a good question.
Okay.
I think that maybe the when you came in and you talked to us about, when you were talking to us about anxiety and stuff like that, and controlling the controllables, um, you know, that was another one that really hit me, and I appreciate that, because you had us take you showed us all these different things, and we had to put them in a box. Like, can we control this? Can we not control this? And the the controllables was a much smaller group
It's so small.
than compared to the non-controllables. And I just think that that helped me, and I appreciate that. I guess that wasn't really a question, but
no, it's great.
um,
It's great. No, I just love that, because when we talk about anxiety, I think that there's two things. When an athlete or a person of any kind focuses too much on the things they can't control, the result is one of two A's, either anxiety or apathy. And you go one way or the other. And neither one, and both of those will drive a kid out of sports. Like, I don't care, or I care way too much because I'm focusing on the wrong things.
Yeah.
And it's so weird, because the thing that caused your anxiety was the thing you cared the most about. And that is that should resonate to a lot of people. Is that doesn't mean we should quit the thing that we love. We just got to learn how to control, how to deal with it. And once you
100%.
do that, man, then the world it's yours. Like, so I love that you've done that, and you're starting to deal with it and help your girls deal with it, because I think that makes you you're my kind of coach, man, because that's what you're trying to do, and I love it. So
yeah. Again, like we were talking about before we started, if I can help one kid,
Yep.
that that's all it takes. Like for me, I know I've done my job. If I can reach that one person by being vulnerable and telling my short story, sharing, my struggles, and they see you in a different light, because it's one of those things that, players, they don't care what you know until they know that you care. And when you open yourself up like that, that is a huge step in that relationship process. And you know it shows that you care and that you are
Yeah.
bought in to not only their success on the basketball court, but their success in life.
Yeah.
And just
Athletics are this perfect proving ground for life. And if you can help a kid deal with some of the pressures, that's the good thing about all the pressures that an athlete now in high school sees,
yeah,
because they are, if they can learn to deal with all the expectations, all the social media, all the noise when they're playing a sport, and they know, I know how to deal with this. Their jobs and their lives, they're not going to be easy,
sure,
but they're gonna have practice at dealing with it, and
absolutely,
that is why a kid should play sports in a nutshell to me. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Lots of life lessons through team sports.
I agree. So Coach, has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Well, thanks for having me. I was very honored to have you asked, and for me to speak on anxiety and coaching,
I,
because
I'm I'm
we got to break that stigma.
I do too. I do too, and I think a little bit at a time is how we do it. I'm honored to have you on. I'm proud of you for speaking up on it, because anytime that because I do the same thing, but anytime I say, if I can just help one kid or help one
Hmm.
person, when I hear that from one person, I know they're helping more than one person,
Yeah,
right?
for
And
sure.
uh, it's just the way it works.
Yep,
So, Coach, it's been fantastic to have you on, and keep doing what you're doing. And I'm here if you need me. You give me a call.
absolutely. Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born, they have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So, how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness, using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching.
So I believe that Coach Ryan Davis, his superpower as a coach is his understanding of anxiety. It's from a struggle that he felt and experienced on a very personal level, in a way that it robbed him from playing basketball when he was young. And the fact that he still loved it so much to want to go coach, and then has decided to go be a coach, it's just a remarkable story, because he still knows the game and he loves the game, but he wasn't able to play it when he was young like he wanted to. And that extreme case that he felt and that he experienced helps him understand when his players are facing expectations, facing pressure, and how it's affecting their body and how it's affecting their mind and how it's affecting
their play, their performance, their mental health, all those things. And he understands that. He's got that empathy. And there's an expression that I learned once that said empathy is the path to innovation. So anytime that we understand something that somebody else is feeling and understanding and really get that, it helps us think about how we could do things differently. And for Ryan, it is empathy, but he doesn't, like, he knows how they're feeling. He understands it. It's a much deeper level of empathy, but he doesn't necessarily coach like a lot of coaches because he's an innovator in the sense because he understands it. He has that empathy and he cares about how they're feeling. And he knows that, hey, the fact that we didn't play well today, there could be an element of we didn't work hard enough. There could be an element of we're not skilled enough and we need to get more skilled, or we don't need to know the plays like we should. There's an element of that, sure. But he does not discount the fact that there's an element of mental toughness or lack of mental toughness or lack of or a presence of anxiety. Like, he doesn't just sweep that under the rug and say, well, we should just be better at that. And I think that changes how he practices, and he puts stuff into his program where he's talking with the girls and working with them and not just watching podcasts or not just bringing in speakers like me, but then taking the tools from them and saying, well, how do we work this into our practice plan? How do we make sure that this is something that we know, that the kids know, that we know is important? All right. So whatever we put our time and effort into, that's what we get better at. So he knows that, hey, if we want to get better at this mental toughness and this resilience and fighting this anxiety, then we have to put the work into it. And he does that. And again, I think that's his superpower, because he's able to go into places. And when I see, like, I love going in and working with different teams, talking to coaches, talking to players. And I always, if I can help it at all, I always go in a little bit early, because a lot of times I'm doing these team coaching sessions after a practice or before a practice. And I will always stick around for practice a little bit or get there a little bit early to watch practice, because I can glean so much from watching just the connection between the players and the coaches and how authentic it is. And okay, is this coach bringing me in here? Is this something that they really believe, or is this something they just think they ought to do, or maybe this is a good idea? There's levels of this, and Ryan was one of those that you can see it in the way he works with his players, talks to his players, and the connection that they have. And it's great to see. And it's one that I knew that, yeah, he's the things that we had these sessions and Ryan was in there working with him and taking notes. And I'm like, he is going to immediately start working some of the things that we talked about and putting them into his practice plan, and remembering that, yeah, we're there to work on basketball, but we can't just say we want our kids to be mentally tough. We actually have to work on it. Like we would tell a kid, like when coaches say, I want my kids to be physically stronger. Yeah, it's great. We do. But then you also make sure that they get in the gym and they lift, because it's probably not going to happen otherwise. You have to schedule time for them to lift. You got to work with the weight coach or however you do it at your school. The mental toughness training has to be the same way. We can just say, hey, be more mentally tough, but that's not going to happen. You have to actually put the work into it. So when I show up and do the mental coaching with the team, a coach needs to take tools from that and say, I'm going to employ this every day, work this into my practice plan. If it's important to me, then we need to put the time into practice plan. And I know what coaches say, well, I don't have time for that. I barely have enough time for what, the things that I want to do. Well, you need to change your priorities, because a lot of times that mental toughness or lack of mental toughness, or how that anxiety is affecting your players, is a much bigger deal than whether or not they know the right play. It just is. And I think a lot of coaches need to figure that out and do that. So Ryan is just a great guy. I love what he's doing. His willingness to be vulnerable with his players on this show, again, that I think is his superpower. I can't say it enough on this show that being vulnerable and understanding that you aren't perfect and then sharing that with others and some of your struggles, and it helps you open up with others, which a coach needs to do, but it also helps you grow. You start to recognize what you struggle with and how you can get better. And I love watching Ryan coach his teams, and I love what he's doing. It's fantastic. Again, I think this is one of the best examples of what I'm trying to do on this show. And I can't thank Ryan enough for coming in. So if you like what you hear, know that I come in to schools and I work with coaches. I go in and do a professional development all about this stuff, about how we can develop these mental skills, this third skill set I talk about, and how we can do that with your team. So I come in and do professional development with coaches. It's great professional development. Coaches love it because they usually don't get professional development like this. I go in and I work with individual teams. I go in and work with teams like I did with Ryan's team. And it's putting investment into what your kids need, which is they need to be a little bit more mentally tough, not just for their sport, but for life. And it's showing, it's not just saying that, it's actually doing it and putting time and effort into that. And I absolutely love all parts of my job, but I really love going into schools and work with teams, working with coaches, and do that. So if that's something that you are interested in as a coach, I highly suggest you give me a call. I would love to help you out. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening, liking, sharing the podcast, finding me on socials. If you aren't, go out there, share the podcast, like, share, subscribe, click on anything Mental Mettle related, hit a like, hit a comment, and it really helps the algorithm, helps to share this idea that I'm trying to do, and I really appreciate that. But for now, we're out of time. This has been the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and always remember to forge your mettle. Thanks for listening to the Mental Mettle Podcast. Don't forget to tune in every week for more insights and strategies to help you forge mental toughness and resilience. This podcast is brought to you by Mental Mettle Coaching, where we are driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that empowers others to play, live, and grow with confidence. Our mission is to instill a resilient and spirited mindset in our clients, enabling them to confidently face adversity and actively seek new challenges for personal growth. At Mental Mettle Coaching, we offer individual coaching, group coaching, and professional development for schools and businesses. Whether you're an athlete, educator, or professional, we're here to help you unlock your potential and thrive in every area of life. Until next time, keep growing, stay resilient, and always remember to forge your mettle.